I just saw a video of New York Congresswoman saying most black kids in the Bronx don't know what a computer is. And I'm not
That's horrible.
black. Yeah,
That's
I'm
horrific.
not I'm not black. I'm not from the Bronx. And I felt that racism like spewing out. And I don't understand how she did not see it. It was not a Freudian slip. It wasn't like, oops, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's just like she believes that. And this is kind of like one of the worst kind of racism, I think. I'm not
Yeah.
saying racism, that racism is racism, but somebody said, and I kind of agree with him, when you see a Nazi, you know he's a Nazi. When you see far left racism, it's mostly usually masqueraded as a good intention
Yeah.
when it's
That,
actually ego.
that's very true.
You felt like that in the UK when you were like being from a Pakistani family and like I'm sure you felt right-wing racism, right? Like saying go back to Pakistan and stuff like that, right?
So I've been very fortunate not to have like experienced any right-wing racism. Oh, that any I can remember anyway. I think the most I really got was for like my accent in school. I was bullied because I learned English as a second language, but I don't have an English accent because I learned English as a second language. I just have like the one of my friends called it the foreign student exchange accent, which I found hilarious. So I'm gonna use that.
You sound American, like in a good
I
way.
get
And
I get that a lot, yeah. That's how I learned English, like watching American media. The bullying caused me to like suppress it for a few years, but like I'm trying not to do that anymore.
suppressing your voice, suppressing
Yeah.
your
Yeah, because it's more interesting than just like sounding like every other British person in the country.
yeah, it's getting to me to the other point about, feeling the need to assimilate. Because I know that a lot of people are talking about Islam and in other places in Europe, in America, not assimilating. I don't know, it's not like everybody's like the same, right? But do you feel like there was like a push to like from your friends to assimilate and from your family to disconnect?
No, actually, I think most of the pressure came from my community, like to not assimilate.
Hmm.
Um, or at least what they thought of as assimilating, and I thought of as adapting to the country we live in. Most of my struggles surrounding like race and culture have come from my own community. That's not like me. I'm not speaking for everyone with my background, but that's my experience. When I told my friends I was from Pakistan and from a Muslim family, maybe it's just the people I've been surrounded with because I've been surrounded by like progressive people for as long as I can remember. I've had more trouble like speaking about being ex-Muslim than showing my culture to my friends. Like they're fine with my culture. They accept my culture. They're curious about my culture, but they, my white friends especially, get uncomfortable when like talk about my like trauma being an ex-Muslim. It's very interesting.
What? What? Well, that's why.
I don't know, cause like they're like the progressive types, so like they don't want to come off as like xenophobic or anti-Muslim or like you know Islamophobic, which I'm sure every survivor of Islamism is very familiar being smeared with. But the thing is that they're not survivors of Islamism. They're white British people who have never been Muslim in their lives. They don't know what like we've been through and how like they think like, oh, I have Muslim friends and that's so nice. Good for you, but you didn't grow up in the community. It's very different in the community.
Recently, I heard about a YouTuber I was following, and he was speaking about being a Jehovah Witness. and about the facade. And he said that the facade is something that is very, very strong in that community. He said it's a cult-like mindset that you need to show yourself as the most nicest, most friendliest person to a non-Jehovah Witness, even though you should not trust them. That's what he said. And everyone who's trying to leave that kind of cult is being shunned from everybody, from friends, from the community, from family. Do you see like a correlation? Do you see like is that something that you've felt or seen?
Yeah, like I've seen it in the Muslim community. They'll be very friendly towards outsiders, but they'll like as soon as they're gone, they'll trash talk them. Like my family did that a lot.
Trash talk about other
And
cultures or other people, and
just like the people, I guess. I had a conversation a while ago with one of my friends who is Jewish, who had a bad experience with, I think it was an Arab friend. Like they thought this friend was like accepting of their like Judaism and didn't have like any prejudice towards them. But it turns out they were wrong. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like a lot of Muslim societies will like put up a front to appear like nicer than they are. But as soon as like it gets to like politics, for example, they show their true colors.
mhm. I'm not trying to be political, but I am following a little bit about what's going on the politics in Britain. I think it was like a congressman, or I don't know, from the Green Party. You can see he's Muslim, I mean, by what he's wearing. And he was shouting, "Allah Akbar, this was for Palestine," when he won. He said, "Yeah, this is for Palestine." He said nothing about British problems, helping British people, helping everything he was talking about when he won. He was just, "This is for Palestine." If I'm taking myself out of the equation as an Israeli Jew, what would I would feel like if I was a regular Christian Brit? How would I feel like if somebody who has been elected in my district was talking about something that is completely different and completely unconnected to the problems in my society, in my country?
Yeah, that's what I ask myself, like seeing all these Westerners so fixated on this really small region of the Middle East instead of focusing on their own problems. Um, and that's kind of what people mean when they say like Muslims infiltrate Western societies. It kind of sounds like fear mongering, but to an extent, that's kind of what some of them do. Like in the example you use, they don't care about British society. They only want to spread their dogma.
I mean, this is kind of scary because, you know, when in Israel, I'll share with you, the very fringe kind of Orthodox Jews who are very, very, very radical, they're having babies like rabbits, they're having children after child after child. I don't think they remember how much kids they have sometimes.
Muslims do
And,
that too.
and exactly, that's the point. I mean, they said, there's a few times that you can hear Orthodox Jews saying, in 2015, we're going to replace you. This country is going to be Orthodox to the max and everything like that. It scares a lot of people in Israel. But I don't know. I feel like there is a difference, maybe because they are not speaking about it in the Muslim community to other non-Muslim people. They are not sharing this sentiment. They're not saying, we will control. They're just saying, well, we're here, we love them, we love you, we love everybody, and but in their community, that's not what they're saying in their mosques and in their
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah, it's very insidious. When we moved to the UK and I was very young, I had this idea that we were like supposed to pledge loyalty to Islam and Pakistan, and we weren't supposed to consider ourselves British having nationality because like it's a Western society and like America is friendly with Israel or whatever. Yeah, like maybe it was like because it definitely isn't every Muslim family, but it's enough to be a problem because I grew up with this, and I know like there are other people who grew up this way as well. Like you'd pretend to be a part of Western society, but within your community, you disavow everything Western, and you're supposed to put Islam first and only pledge to Islam.
Yeah, because Islam is it's kind of like a political movement in a sort of way. I mean,
It is like I think the number of Muslims in the world who actually practice the religion for the sake of like spirituality is much lower than the like reported number of 1.8 billion. I think like for a lot of that 1.8 billion, it's a political movement, or it's just because they were born into it and they don't know any better, or like they're too scared to leave. There's a lot of like nuance to it. It's definitely more of a political ideology, especially in this day and age.
how did you move back out of it, or just like because you said that you were very anti British nationalism. You said you were. What was like the trigger?
My parents were that way, but I've never really like I've never been that receptive to their propaganda as maybe other like ex-Muslims were. And that's also kind of how I'm learning about Israel Palestine because despite growing up in a very Pakistani Muslim family, I never really like supported Palestine. Like even before I was pro Israel, I didn't really care enough to support Palestine. Um, Me leaving Islam was like I've always had a rebellious streak even before I realized I didn't believe in Islam anymore. And I think that helped me to like step away from it because what triggered my journey of becoming an ex-Muslim was very small. It was very trivial. Like I was just like, I want to try haram food. And that kind of like dominoed into what I am now. Like just seeing everything I was told for like early years of my life being a lie and how deep my parents and community are in that lie.
Sure, because the community is very, hard on it and very forward.
Yeah, that's correct. I actually was talking to a friend about it. He's an Iraqi Muslim, but like he says he's only Muslim because he wants to feel connected to his family through religion, but he's not like he doesn't actually do any of the like practices and stuff. Like I think he only celebrates like the holidays, and that's so understandable to me. Like even if I think at that point just leave Islam, but I understand the desire for community because it is lonely. You lose your entire community because it's not very often that your community will be accepting of you as an ex-Muslim. Like you might have heard of like ex-Christians and their like the reactions they got from their family as well. It's worse than that, especially if you're in a Muslim majority country. So like as bad as it is, at least I'm like in somewhere like England where I can get out as opposed to like Iran or like Syria or Afghanistan.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
I have a friend. She knew she was gay from 16 years old, and she lived in a very Orthodox Jewish family in Jerusalem. No, sorry, she knew she was gay from 11 years old.
Mm.
But she decided to tell her family when she was 16, and they didn't kick her out, but they did not speak to her, and she felt that she needs to go, so she left and she started living by herself as a 16-year-old in Tel Aviv. And It was only after she had a serious car accident when she was 22, like 4 or 5 years later, she reconnected with her family. And now she is going to Shabbat dinners with them and with her wife. And they do not speak about it, but they are accepting it. And I feel like, why is it, why are we supposed to get to life and death
Yeah.
situation to be accepting one another, especially family? I mean, your kid.
Mm, yeah. Especially like especially family. I feel like if you're going to have children, you should be prepared for your children to be their own people. Like anything can happen with that child, and it's not in your control. Um, I'm glad she reconnected. Like, yeah, like even in like in the queer community, like being religious is a touchy subject. Because a lot of us have religious trauma, but they're like, queer religious people do exist. Their voices deserve to be heard, but it's very hard.
Yeah, there are queer community in Israel, which is very Jewish, and I can see like there's a lot of uh, gay Israelis wearing a flag, a gay flag on a kippah, and it's so cute. I mean, it's like
I've
I
seen
was
them.
right. I knew it. It's not new, but it's so cute. I mean, it's the I was never a big fan of that small little hat that doesn't do anything except
On the
say,
kippah?
yeah, the kippah. And but I do like it when it's saying a statement or something. I respect the culture. I enjoy. I'm agnostic, but I enjoy being in a family setting, in a cultural setting, a Jewish holiday setting. I enjoy it. And I love the food, I love the singing, I love there's a lot of happiness
Mhm.
and togetherness. How was your family, having holidays and Ramadan and stuff like that? How would you experience that yourself?
Um, Judaism is an ethno-religion, so even if you're secular, you still get to participate in the culture, and there's still a lot to appreciate about the culture. But Islam is just a universal religion. There's no such thing as like Muslim culture in the ethnic sense because like Islam encompasses so many like Muslims comprise like so many ethnicities and nationalities. And it like, you'd say you're not Muslim anymore, but you are Pakistani. And maybe that's what it says on my passport, but I don't feel connected to Pakistan anymore at all. I feel connected to the land, but not the state. And I don't like calling myself Pakistani. So it's I'm in a weird place right now concerning like my ancestry and where I feel I have allegiance to or where I belong or whatever. And concerning like holidays and stuff, my family don't really do anything. It's really sad. Like my family don't do anything because all of our relatives live in Pakistan. I can tell my mother is not very happy living here, being so far away from her family, which is why they're moving back soon. Um,
Wow,
yeah, they've been talking about it for years, but I think they're finally doing it. It's not a decision I was happy about, but ultimately I think it's for the best, and I will be independent anyway. I'm more worried about my younger brothers, but I have to hope that everything turns out okay. And I have to prioritize myself. Like living my entire life, like compromising for other people is exhausting, and it's time to stop doing that.
that you were obliged to, how you said it, like walk on eggshells and just being
Yeah.
and you felt it was something that was connected to the Islamic culture or Islamic religion. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I've been living a double life for almost half my life. And it is very draining. I think more than I even realize. I don't have much energy on a day-to-day basis. And I like really wonder how much of that comes from living in a dysfunctional family where I can't be myself.
Like you're trying to disassociate or try to see if your personal experience is like special or it's like Islam related, right? It's like you're saying to yourself, I don't know if it's just me or others feels the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, like I don't know if I'm chronically ill or I'm just trapped in a very toxic environment.
I can tell you, I've been gaslighted by my grandma, me and my younger sister. I've been gaslighted by my grandma for like ever since I know her. She is a narcissist, a classic narcissist. And there's a feeling of, I just realized it like 2 years ago. I realized that I did not know she was that, behaving that way. And it was by therapy that I understood it. And I think that the, the hardest thing is the self-hate or the self-blame that you are not, it's your fault, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that you felt like it's your fault, you are not okay?
Absolutely. Um, just a few days ago, I was like really upset about my plan to cut myself off from my parents when I move away for university this year. I was having second thoughts about it. And at the same time, that's really frustrating because that's exactly what's been holding me back this whole time. Guilt. And like wanting to believe that I can fix things with my parents, but I think the truth is I won't be able to fix anything until I get out of here. And I need to be in like my own power before I reach out to them again. If I reach out to them again. Like I don't want to be dependent on them. I don't want to be living with them. I need at least 5 years away from them. And then maybe I can think about contacting them again and starting over, but um
Not right
yeah, I
now.
haven't yeah, I really need to like I really I will go through with it. I really need to like not let my guilt get in the way.
It's even that's a question I have to ask. Like you said, your family didn't have any holidays and doing anything. Was there like any activities to do with your parents, like going out? Um, like how was your day-to-day life and interaction?
So we did like go out on Ramadan, like on Eid. Um, try to enjoy the day. But most of my memories are just really bad. Like there would always be a fight or something that goes wrong, some sort of tension, and my parents like complaining, "Oh, this would be so much better in Pakistan. We'd be with our family. The entire country would be celebrating," and it would just get miserable. And then like slowly we just stopped doing anything special at all, except maybe wearing like nice clothes and maybe like painting henna on our hands. Um, that was always the part I look forward to. But sometimes we don't even do that anymore. Most of my memories with family are like where they're supposed to be joyful, they're just painful, which is also probably another sign that I need to leave. I need some time away from here.
Mhm. Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. Sometimes most of the time. I mean, most of the time when somebody is toxic or something is toxic, you feel the need. Even if you don't feel the need, it is the healthiest thing for yourself to do to move away a little bit, take some perspective. And I'm saying it as somebody who, you know, in my personal experience, when I left my house, stuff that I felt like stuff that I saw myself doing or experiencing as my fault, suddenly I saw, well, when I'm out of the picture, why is it still happening? Or why stuff are still like that? And
Mm-hmm.
so I started thinking, well, maybe it's not my fault. Maybe there is something, problematic in that kind of relationship. And you know, because my mother died when I was young, and so my grandma came when I was like 11 and my sister was 3 to kind of like replace her, you know, um, in cooking, in helping in the house, and helping us with our homework and stuff like that. And it was very problematic, and I felt that only after I moved out, I started thinking clearly and having kind of rational thinking about, saying it's not your fault. Is
Yeah.
that something that you felt? Because I think that maybe you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that because you are queer, maybe because you felt that from, I don't know, a young age, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you already felt disconnect, how you said that you never felt connected to Islam or to that. Maybe it's because you felt that it contradicts with your personality or who you are as a person.
Yeah, I was always very long before I like started questioning Islam when I was a child, I was always very what's the word, gender non-conforming, and my parents would hate it. Like relatives would just like look at me like I was strange. Um but there's always been a part of me, or in some ways I've always been non-conforming, and yeah, I've never like, I guess looking back, I didn't feel connected to Islam. I felt connected to the community I thought I had. Um and being queer is something that like you, even before you realize you're queer, you just feel something different about you, that like the like you're different in ways that the other kids aren't different. But you like, even if you can't name it at that moment in time, you just know it's an instinctual feeling. And queer Muslims exist, but for me, like being queer is so incompatible with Islam.
Yeah, you think that even if there are queer Muslims, I think there's a kind of a gap between, because there are queer Christians and queer Jews.
Mhm. Like Christianity isn't perfect, and I know in America especially, Christianity is weaponized um against women and minorities, including queer people. Here though, like in the UK, all the Christians are not nice. Like they will happily talk to you about being Christian, but they don't like push it on you. And like I know Christian like organizations that are openly welcoming to queer folks and about inclusion of queer people in Christian life. You just don't see that with Islam. Like I don't think I've ever seen anything like that for queer Muslims. And it's sad, but it also makes a lot of sense.